Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And the pistol we have on the table today is a very nice 45 caliber handgun. In fact, it's a pretty darn big one. Today we're going to be looking at the FNX-45 Tactical. Now this was an outgrowth and a successor to the FNP-45 Tactical, which looks pretty much exactly the same, but there are a few internal changes, and the magazines for some reason are not compatible. Now the FNX and the FNP is an outgrowth of the Joint Combat Pistol Program, which occurred in 2005 and 2006, and it was the U.S. military's original idea to replace the Beretta M9 with a 45 caliber handgun. Other entrants to this test was the HK-45 and the Beretta PX-4 Storm Special Duty. And obviously the military did not select any of these guns, and then almost a decade later selected the M17 and the M18 from SIG and kept everything in 9mm. But of course these companies invested so much money in these pistols, they wanted to recoup some of that, so of course they put these guns on the civilian marketplace and tried to advertise them and market them to other police and military forces around the world. And this gun is definitely designed for the military. It is almost an offensive handgun. It's that big, and it even has a 15 round capacity magazine. That is huge for 45. So this really is a beast of a pistol, and I can't wait to get it to the range and of course shoot this suppressed, because this was originally designed to be a great suppressor host. But before we get this to the range and talk about all the things that I like and don't like, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really cool pistol. He's a local fan and subscriber. His name is Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that lends guns to the channel, so I affectionately call him Jack number 2. So thank you once again, Jack. As always, I want to thank my Patreons, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I couldn't do this without their support. And if you guys want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, there will be a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor, who always provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and thus makes them financially feasible for me to make, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And although I'm not reviewing a pistol today that is made of steel and wood and can accept wood panel grips, it is chambered in 45, and of course the ultimate gun chambered in 45 is the 1911, and you guys probably have some very nice 1911s in your collection, and you might be in the market for a set of awesome and customized grips to make your pistols unique and one of a kind. Well, the perfect grip company for you is going to be Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist and he is a craftsman, and he is always coming up with new and innovative features for his grips. He can apply custom logos, custom textures, custom engravings. He can finish these grips in a wide variety of colors. He can even make his own laminate woods and apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin to make these grips unique and one of a kind. So I'm going to ask you guys to go check out his website. I'm going to put a link in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So please go over to Brownworks and see what grips he's making that you want. Place that order, and when you do, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so let's talk about the pistol we have on the table today. We have the FNX-45 Tactical, the successor to the FNP-45 Tactical, which came out of the Joint Combat Pistol Program. Now, the FNP and the FNX are almost identical when it comes to their aesthetics, but internally there's a couple of things that they changed, and the magazines are not compatible for some reason. I never understood that. But if you own an FNP, they still make the mags for them. But if you have an FNX, the mags are a little bit easier to come by. Now this is the tactical model, so we have all of the features that you would expect on a tactical pistol. We have a threaded barrel, which makes it a great suppressor host. We have suppressor height sights. All of the controls are ambidextrous. The trigger is double action, single action with a safety and a decocker. This pistol is in flat dark earth. FN did offer them in black as well, but they made a lot less of those, and those are actually more collectible and rare, but I think the ones in flat dark earth definitely look the part and are cooler. We do have it optics ready, and it does have a rail for any type of attachments, lasers, lights, etc. So this thing is feature packed. Now, before we get this to the range and find out how it shoots, as always, I want to talk about the things that I like and don't like, and I always want to start with the positive first. And pretty much everything I just said about this pistol that made it tactical is what I love about this pistol. This pistol is designed for military and combat use, and this is exactly the type of gun that I love to collect and shoot. So I've already mentioned everything about this gun that I like, and I think if you like the same type of pistols and guns that I do, all those features are going to excite you. It just gives you so many options. Plus, it has that military history to it. This thing is a big, beefy pistol. It kind of reminds me of the HK Mk23, and that was designed as an offensive pistol. Although this is not as big, I kind of feel like it is in the same category of that type of gun. It is big, it is powerful, it has lots of capacity, it is designed for combat and offensive use, and it's just a great looking, big, beefy pistol. Now, I did talk about this trigger, and I think the trigger in this is pretty nice, especially for a polymer hammer fired pistol. So I want to adjust the camera, I want to get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and I want to show you what this trigger is all about. So let me do that now. So let's take a look at this trigger and this FNX-45 Tactical. Before we do, of course, we'll safety check the gun, ensure there is no ammunition in the magazine, and visually inspect the chamber. It looks like we are clear and good. The first thing I want to do is show you the different modes of this trigger. Of course, we can fire this double action, and when you do, the slide will cycle. It will cock the hammer. We can now fire it single action, which with the safety and decocker, you can have the hammer down, put the safety on, you can have the hammer back, carry it cocked and locked. If the hammer is cocked, you can also decock it by simply pushing that lever down. And no matter what condition the gun is in, you can go right back to a double action pull if you like. So you get tons of different carry options with this particular trigger. So let me show you the reset and the take-up of this trigger now. Let's start off in double action. We get a pretty long and heavy take-up in double action, but you do reach a point that's kind of like a wall, and it has a pretty good break to it. It's pretty predictable. You get to a point, and then just a little bit more, and the hammer drops. When it comes to single action, very short take up, you're right at a wall, and has a very nice crisp break to it. And here is the reset. Little bit on the long side, and then you have a little bit of a squishy take up, but definitely manageable for a combat military style handgun. All right, so let's test out this trigger pull now. I have the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge out. Let me go ahead and clear the averages, and let's try this in double action first. Hopefully it will measure. And our first pull is 9 pounds, 7.0 ounces. £9, 13.3 ounces. £9, 15.5 ounces. 9 pounds, 9.0 ounces, and finally 9 pounds, 14.0 ounces, which gives us an average of 9 pounds, 11.8 ounces. So definitely a heavy trigger pull, but not so heavy that the gauge can't read it. But that is the double action trigger pull. So now let's try this in single action. Let me clear the averages and see what the difference is. 4 pounds, 3.0 ounces. 4 pounds, 9.6 ounces. 4 pounds, 3.4 ounces. 4 pounds, 4.3 ounces. And finally, 4 pounds, 1.2 ounces, which gives us an average of 4 pounds, 4.3 ounces. So in single action, this trigger is pretty darn light, but not too light. It's right in that sweet spot for me personally. And the double action pull isn't so heavy that I think it's going to throw your shots. So this is a pretty darn good trigger for a polymer hammer-fired pistol. So that's what this trigger is all about. So now let's talk about a few things about this pistol that I may not like. And as you can see, the trigger in this pistol is pretty darn good. You can shoot it double action, single action. You can carry it cocked and locked. You can carry it with the hammer down safely, with the safety on or the safety off. You have so many different options depending on your personal preferences and how you train. In my personal opinion, this gives you the best of all worlds and it doesn't have any compromises to it. So really depending on what you like, you can carry it that way. That is the perfect setup for a military handgun, in my opinion. Now let's talk about two things about this gun that I don't like. And one of the things I don't like about this deals with the controls, and more specifically, the slide stop. All of the controls on this handgun, from the safety to the magazine release, they're huge, except for that slide stop. It is very small on both sides and it's kind of recessed into the frame. And I feel like if you're going to be using this in a combat situation, you might be wearing gloves and it might be hard to lock that slide open because it's just so small. Now this is definitely a slide stop and not a slide release, but still I think gloved hands would have a hard time operating that. The other thing about this gun that I don't like, and it is a complaint many people have, is actually the safety. It kind of feels cheap and plasticky. In fact, all the parts are made of polymer. It just doesn't sound good, and sometimes when it clicks into the detent for the safety, it's not very strong. This one's pretty good, but it definitely feels and sounds plasticky, as well as the trigger pull itself, and maybe you can hear some of that. It just doesn't sound rock solid. Now, I do know this is a well-tested trigger, and I'm not worried about it breaking or anything, but of course, perception is reality. And when you have that feel of plastic and hear that plasticky sound, it doesn't always exude confidence. But I'm curious how all of this is going to translate to performance at the range. And that's what we're going to do now. So the first thing I want to do is take this suppressor off. And of course, it's just a direct thread suppressor. So I want to fire it unsuppressed, see how the pistol performs, and then of course I will suppress it. So we will start off at 7 yards unsuppressed, 1 magazine through it, just to see if I have any issues and if there's anything else about this gun that I discover that I like or don't like, and I'll report back to you. And that was a really interesting result that I got from that first magazine. I wasn't expecting this gun to feel the way it does. If you've ever shot guns chambered in .45, you know the recoil impulse is kind of a thud or a thump. This gun doesn't have that. It's very smooth, very comfortable, even though it has a pretty darn aggressive grip texture. It does have a lot of muzzle flip though, and I think that's because the bore axis is kind of high. I like to ride my frames really high, and as you can see, the slide and the barrel are well above my hand. So even though it may look like the gun has a lot of recoil, it really doesn't. Now, the next thing we're going to do is at the same distance, we are going to attach a suppressor. And hopefully the extra weight on the end of the barrel will prevent this gun from having that muzzle rise, and I will have to see if it's going to change the accuracy of this gun. It grouped really well in that last footage, it was just a little bit low. So at the same distance, let's put another magazine through this, now with a suppressor, and see if we discover anything new. And as expected, this gun is shooting even better suppressed. It was designed to be a great suppressor host. I still am getting a lot of muzzle flip, even with that extra weight of the suppressor, and that did kind of surprise me. But the gun is even smoother with it. Now I want to talk about the performance and the tone. Now every suppressor is going to have a different tone, but the thing about .45 that I absolutely love is most of your projectile weights are going to be subsonic, so you don't have to worry about hearing that crack as the projectile breaks the sound barrier. It's a very low tone, and it's a thud or a oof, and it's really cool to hear even at the indoor range. Now when it comes to the group, it's just as good as the first shots that I put through this gun unsuppressed, and I did not adjust where the sights were going to be on the target, and I feel like they're dead on now. So adding the suppressor has changed the point of impact to match where the suppressor height sights are. This gun is awesome and one of the nicest .45s I have ever shot. And I'm glad with the suppressor we didn't have any malfunctions. But now let's double the distance of this target. Let's go out to a further distance. And by the way, every test I do from now on is going to be suppressed because this gun shoots so much better with it. So here we go, another magazine at a further distance, and let's see how the gun performs and how accurate I can be with it. And I'm continuing to get the same results. This gun is so much fun to shoot, and it really feels like a beast of a pistol that you can control. And there's just something about shooting a suppressed .45. It's just one of the best calibers to suppress. And I can see why the military was definitely thinking about a pistol like this. All right, so the next test I want to do is the bench rest test. And at 20 or 25 yards, I want to try to take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible. And yes, this gun can go out way further than this distance, but that's as far as I can set the target out at this indoor range. So here we go, another magazine through this. Let me shoot it against a barrier and see just how accurate I can be at this furthest distance at this range. And this gun is fantastically accurate for me. I am so impressed by it. It's one of the nicest shooting 45s, as I mentioned, I've ever shot. One of the most accurate 45s I have ever shot. I love these suppressor height sights. They're clearing the silencer just like they should. And the trigger is outstanding. I showed you earlier in this video, even though it kind of feels a little bit cheap, it has a very crisp break at about 4.5 pounds. And I feel like this is a great duty trigger. I wouldn't want anything lighter, but it's just the right trigger for this application. Now, the next thing I want to do is the hollow point test. And I mentioned this is probably going to be a pistol that would work great as a home defense weapon. And of course, you would want to use hollow points. So I just want to make sure with a suppressor, with a gun that's designed for combat, will it run hollow points accurately? I have noticed that sometimes 45 ACP hollow points don't feed very well in various guns. But I'm expecting it to run great in this one. So let's find out. Let's go back to the range, put some hollow points through this, and just shoot it and have some more fun. And as expected, this gun ran perfect. I have no issues with it whatsoever. This honestly would be the ultimate home defense pistol, especially with a nice high quality silencer on it. Alright, so the next test I want to do is another trigger test. I want to see what the double action is like on this, and can I shoot it as accurate as I have the single action to this point. So we're going to go back to the range, and after every shot, I am going to use the decocker, lower that hammer, and shoot a double action each time. Often this surprises me because I don't shoot double action revolvers very well, but when it comes to guns like SIG, when I do the double action tests, I shoot them great. So I'm hoping this is going to be the same. So let's see. And this gun is exceeding my expectations. Even in double action, it's just as accurate as single action. That double action pull, about 9.5 pounds, is very smooth and very predictable. And this means that depending on your style and how you want to carry your gun, you can do it comfortably and know it's going to be accurate with that first shot. If you're somebody that likes to carry these guns cocked and locked, you can do that. Always shoot it single action. If you like to have that hammer down, you can do that as well. And I feel like that first shot is going to be just as accurate as that follow-up shot. What an outstanding trigger in this FN. All right, so the next test I want to do is kind of a three-parter. Of course, I want to see if I can shoot this gun fast, and I want to see if I can reload the gun quickly. Now, I will say these magazines, sometimes when I'm inserting them, if I don't put them in at just the right angle, they kind of stick just a little bit. This gun doesn't have a very big magwell or flare to it at all, so I think maybe trying to insert it fast might slow me down just a little bit. And of course, I want to see if this gun is easily point shootable. I know that a lot of people in home defense and self-defense scenarios think you're going to have a lot of time to get your sights on target, but that's usually not the case. You're pretty much just going to point the gun, pull the trigger, and hope you survive the encounter. And if that's the case and all the adrenaline is running through your body, is this gun a naturally pointing firearm? And I'm kind of curious, because it has so much muzzle flip, what the follow-up shots are going to be like. So let's go to the range and test these three things out. Now, I felt like I really had to pace myself. Normally when it comes to this test, I try to shoot the guns absolutely as fast as I can. And with this gun, I couldn't do that. Because of the muzzle flip, even with the suppressor, I had to take a little bit of time to make sure the gun was back on target. I found if I shot it really fast and just tried to point shoot it, it was all over the place. And so I really feel like this is a great duty gun. It's a great range gun. It's definitely not a good competition gun. It's definitely not a great concealed carry gun. It's just simply too big. But it does have its purpose and its role because of what it was designed to be. And in that capacity, it's absolutely outstanding. But this is not a gun I think you're going to mag dump really quick and be very accurate with it and have a lot of fun. You just got to pace yourself with it. So what are my final thoughts on the FNX-45 Tactical? Just a great combat range gun. This thing is perfect for what it was designed to be. And it's kind of sad the US military did not adopt it in any way, because I could see this being fielded by some units, special forces, and they really getting into using this like it was designed to be. This is a very potent weapon and probably could have been an offensive handgun just like the Mk23. But as I mentioned, this is going to be a great combat pistol, or a pistol for home defense. It's not going to be good for CCW, not good for competitions, but hands down, this is probably the best, nicest, and most accurate 45 I have ever reviewed. It just needs a little bit of refinement, I think, to just take it over the top. Just make sure that trigger feels a little bit more solid. Work on the detents and the safety selector switch where it just doesn't feel cheap. And give me a little bit bigger slide stop. You give me those three things, this thing is beyond a 5-star review. But I have been so impressed by this pistol. The only thing I couldn't do well with it is just shoot it fast. So on my star system, how would I rate the FNX-45 Tactical? Well, you guys can see that I'm gushing over this pistol. I knew I would like it. I didn't think I would like it this much. So easily 5 out of 5 stars. Hands down, the nicest 45 I have ever shot and reviewed. It's not the prettiest, but it's the best. It just shoots so well for me. So what do you guys think? Do you like handguns this large? Do you like 45? And have you ever shot the FNX-45 Tactical? And have you shot it suppressed? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.